And we're starting off with WWE Payback as Seth Rollins fought through his back injuries to defeat Shinsuke Nakamura, retaining the World Heavyweight Championship in the process. After weeks of attacks by Nakamura, this was a huge win, as well as Rollins' first time headlining a PLE with this championship, but this likely won't be the last time these two face off. After Payback 2023 went off the air, Nakamura attacked Rollins on the entrance ramp, making it clear that this feud is not over. The fans in Pittsburgh's PPG Paints Arena would chant, "We want Priest," and were eager to see Senor Money in the Bank cash in, but there was no sighting from the new Undisputed Tag Team Champion. With this attack, fans can expect a rematch between Nakamura and Rollins in due time, but are you emotionally invested in this feud? Let us know in the comments down below. At AEW All Out, Miro was able to beat Powerhouse Hobbs in a highly physical match, but the biggest story would come after this match had already finished. After the match, the two would shake hands before Hobbs would blindside the Bulgarian, but Miro would receive some backup from the debuting CJ Perry. While the former Lana wasn't referred to by name, instead being called Mrs. Miro on commentary, Perry struck Hobbs with a steel chair, which did little damage to the Powerhouse. When Hobbs confronted Perry, Miro attacked his nemesis, sending Hobbs out of the ring before having a tense stare-off with his wife, unsure as to what to say. In the end, Miro muttered something along the lines of "You're not real" before walking away from Perry, leaving the Ravishing Russian's debut on a cliffhanger that fans will stay tuned for. Sean Ross Sapp would report that Perry's debut was kept very quiet ahead of the show, and all that secrecy paid off as her debut was not leaked ahead of time, giving fans a shocking debut. Miro and Perry were released from WWE, and while Perry focused on other endeavors, she's now joined her husband in AEW, even if he seems unsure about reuniting with his wife on TV. This past week, the decision was made for CM Punk to be released from AEW due to his backstage incident with Jack Perry. So much has already been said about what happened backstage in Wembley, an incident that resulted in a legal investigation, but we now know more about what happened at All In. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was reported that the investigation involved collecting statements from eyewitnesses to the altercation, as well as relevant context behind why there was conflict. An investigation looked at the way things have changed over the past year and was said to involve a lot of wrestlers before a conclusion was made regarding Punk's behavior. The conclusion, from AEW's disciplinary committee, lawyers, and external investigators, was all unanimous, as all three parties recommended Punk's dismissal, which Khan decided to do. Dave Meltzer added that there is so much more to it that hasn't come out that contributed to the decision, before adding that some of his reporting has been too kind to the former AEW star. It was noted that Punk did more than lunge at Tony Khan as previously reported, and it's expected that much more will be coming out about this situation in the coming days and weeks. While legal investigators recommended that Tony Khan release Punk, Khan has made clear that the decision was his alone, but some suspect Punk won't be too hurt about losing his job. During Wrestling Observer Radio, Bryan Alvarez noted that some people in AEW believe Punk was trying to get out of his contract, with Dave Meltzer adding that he's heard the same. Alvarez said, "I can't say because I cannot get into his brain, but yes, there were a lot of people who thought that when that contract was signed with the Young Bucks and Page and everything, that he wanted out, and something was gonna happen." Those sources added that they suspect Punk believed that he and the Elite were simply not compatible in AEW, and with the group signing new deals, it'd be he who'd have to leave. It's worth stating that Punk has not commented on reports he wanted out, and nobody close to him has said that he intended to try to get out of his contract either. Whether fans think it was the right or wrong call, CM Punk is gone from AEW, leaving behind a roster of AEW Collision talent that he had a role in selecting. On his show, Bryan Alvarez spoke about Collision, saying that it was during a backstage meeting before Collision that Tony Khan told everyone what had happened with Punk. Of course, by the time that Collision event went on the air, fans were well aware as to what had happened, and many had signs related to Punk and his shocking exit from the company. These signs would not last long though, as in footage shared online, security could be seen confiscating any Punk-related signs, as AEW didn't want anyone thinking about CM Punk. With Punk gone, that meant plans for All Out had to be rebooked, as initially he was going to defend the Real World Championship against Ricky Starks in the main event of the show. Instead, Starks faced Bryan Danielson in a brutal strap match at the event, and AEW once again wanted to make sure that nobody in the crowd was making reference to a certain ex-employee. Sean Ross Sapp reports that Punk signs were also being confiscated at All Out, but refuted reports that security were asking fans in Punk shirts to turn their merchandise inside out. While this had been rumored, Sapp made it clear that it isn't true, adding that one security guard said it in jest, and the reports snowballed from there. Punk's release from AEW comes after a week-long investigation into his situation with Jack Perry, but this was hardly the only person Punk had an issue with in AEW. Ryan Nemeth, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page, and Colt Cabana have all felt the wrath of the self-professed locker room leader, and you can add William Regal to the list. Bodyslam.net reports that Punk had an altercation with Regal after the British Legend's debut in AEW, and Punk was not keen to shake Regal's hand. They report, "Multiple sources have confirmed to me details about an incident that took place between CM Punk and William Regal, which took place when Regal made his AEW debut. In the altercation between the two men, Punk refused to shake Regal's hand and would then get in the Legend's face, telling him that he did not like him, he did not trust him, and that Regal was a stooge for Triple H." Regal and Triple H are known friends, with Regal helping Triple H during the game's WCW tenure, and the British star would be a groomsman for Triple H's actual wedding to Stephanie in 2003. Nowadays, Regal is back with WWE, where he's working closely with Triple H again, and we imagine this incident will do Punk no favors if he intends to wrestle again as part of WWE. Sean Ross Sapp adds that several top WWE superstars do not want to see Punk be rehired by the company, believing that he will just bring the trouble we've seen in AEW over to WWE. It was in January of this year that Seth Rollins called Punk a cancer in relation to what happened at All Out 2022, and encouraged Punk to steer very clear away from a potential WWE return. CM Punk might very well have one incredibly explosive tell-all interview sooner than later, as there seems to be no gag order on his release, so we may soon be learning more about his issues with William Regal. Despite all this, Punk still has some allies, including Ace Steel, who was brought back to AEW last year thanks to Punk's involvement with Collision. AEW has yet to provide any clarity on Steel's employment status now that Punk is gone, but as it stands, it's believed he is still with AEW, albeit working remotely for the time being. One name who has had issues with Punk for years is Kenta, the originator of the GTS, who wasn't allowed to use the move for years in WWE because Punk stole the move and used it in WWE first. On Twitter, Kenta reacted to news of Punk's release saying, "Welcome back, my go-to-sleep," as the Japanese star is happy he is now the one wrestler using that particular move. Punk won't be using the GTS, at least not anytime soon, but what Punk is expected to do is make a statement about his release. After all, Punk has hardly been the quiet type, especially when it comes to the controversies throughout his career, and Sports Illustrated report that Punk's statement could prove to be explosive. This is by no means the end of Phil Brooks as CM Punk. Sources close to both sides expect a response from Punk, which holds the potential to be explosive. It's disappointing that after so much promise just 2 years ago, the relationship ends in such a disjointed manner. Speaking on his Click This podcast, Kevin Nash spoke about Punk, someone he worked with in 2011 as part of WWE, and said he believes the ex-AEW star needs some help with his mental health. Nash said that Punk has become so destructive that it has cost the Chicago-made star millions of dollars, in which he could have made had he not been released by AEW. Nash and Punk have also maintained a positive relationship, and at one point, the pair were supposed to compete at Night of Champions 2011 before Nash failed his required medical. It was later revealed that Nash was taking a blood thinner called Plavix because his father had passed away at age 36, and even someone who has often spoke highly of Punk disagrees with what he's done as of late. When Punk arrived in AEW, fans were excited, and he gave the company undeniable credibility, but in a little over 2 years, he's exiting the company as a social pariah. House of Wrestling reports that there were efforts to try and make things work with Punk and that a meeting was scheduled to take place prior to All In last month. That meeting would have included Punk and relevant members of the Elite, presumably Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Hangman Adam Page, as well as Tony Khan in attendance. The exact date of said meeting is unclear, but it's believed that the meeting would have taken place in Atlanta sometime around August 23rd, when Dynamite and Collision were filmed in Duluth. The purpose of the meetings was for the two sides to bury the hatchet and move on from their issues, but House of Wrestling states that the Elite canceled the meeting at the last minute. This abrupt cancellation appears to have added to Punk's overall frustrations with the situation and would seemingly play a factor into what ended up happening at All In. Khan, in his address to the Collision audience Saturday night after firing Punk, said that the situation endangered the safety of people backstage, including himself, and this forced Punk's termination. But what do you make of all this? Is Tony Khan right to release CM Punk? And what do you expect Punk to say in his potentially explosive statement? Share your thoughts in the comments below. During the media conference after AEW All Out, Tony Khan confirmed that Jungle Boy is still suspended indefinitely. We will have to wait to see how long Jack Perry is off AEW television. Some fans are very happy with Jack Perry because he helped get rid of CM Punk. On the other hand, a lot of fans are very upset with him for the same reason. Last week's Collision was the first event following the release of CM Punk and also took place in Punk's hometown of Chicago, Illinois. Understandably, Punk was on the minds of everyone at the event, but did Matt Jackson gloat about Punk's release after Collision went off the air? In videos taken after the shoot, Jackson could be seen doing victory laps as a few vocal fans chanted for Punk, with some accusing the Young Buck of being delighted CM Punk is gone. This week's Collision saw the debut of the Young Bucks, who, like the rest of the Elite, had been kept far away from the show due to the issues between their faction and Punk himself. Now with Punk gone, the Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Adam Page should have no issues appearing on Collision, in addition to still being regulars on Dynamite and also working Rampage. As to whether this victory lap was just Jackson having fun with the fans or a shot at CM Punk, only Matt knows for sure, but his actions after Collision have certainly had fans talking. During last week's Smackdown, John Cena made his return to WWE programming, kicking off what will be his longest stint on WWE programming in years. On the show, Cena would reveal that he would be the host of Payback before being interrupted by Jimmy Uso, but this wasn't exactly what the original plan for Cena's return looked like. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that in the original script for SmackDown, Cena was scheduled to interrupt a Jimmy Uso promo, and there's no word on why WWE swapped their places. Cena was only informed on Friday that he would be hosting Payback, despite the fact that reports of him hosting the show had gone public the previous day, reports Cena clearly didn't see online. Cena's return has been in the works ever since the start of the SAG-AFTRA strikes, and while some have taken issue with Cena appearing on TV during the strikes, WWE is a non-union affiliated show. Cena will be around every Friday night until the end of October, something WWE fans are very excited for, and it'll be interesting to see what comes next for the 16-time world champion. At Payback, the Judgment Day added more championship gold to their collection, as Finn Balor and Damian Priest captured the undisputed tag titles from Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. The grueling Steel City street fight saw Priest and Balor holding the total 4 championship titles that make up the undisputed tag gold, but a major change could be in store on Raw. Sources have indicated that WWE has been discussing tonight's show as the night to unveil the new tag team championship belts, which were created by WWE's belt makers months ago. In fact, the report adds that there has been talks of these titles being exclusive to Raw, meaning we'd soon see new tag titles on SmackDown, essentially undoing the title unification from May of last year. It's also worth stating that this is just something that's been discussed and isn't at all confirmed at this time just yet, but tonight's show could see quite the celebration and title ceremony for the Judgment Day. At WWE Payback, Trish Stratus competed in the show's opening steel cage match against Becky Lynch, a match that would see the man win despite the attempted interference of Zoe Stark. Given that Stratus is a heel, the fans in Pittsburgh rallied behind Lynch throughout the match, and one fan even got a profane response from Trish before the match even got started. As seen in footage shared online, the fan in question was telling Trish that Lynch would beat her, prompting Stratus to tell the fan to, quote, "shut the up." The fan seemed to take Stratus's very un-PG response well, and was likely just happy to have an interaction with the WWE Hall of Famer, and a very unique response at that. The fan's prediction proved to be accurate, and after this loss in Pittsburgh, it remains to be seen what's next for the battered and bruised WWE Hall of Famer. More from All Out, which saw Adam Cole and MJF retain the ROH World Tag Team titles, but there was quite the incident after the match. As the pair were on the ramp, ROH World Television Champion Samoa Joe made his way out to the ring for his match with Shane Taylor, pushing MJF out of the way, starting a brawl between the two stars. What fans may not have noticed is that this segment was actually a throwback to a WWE segment in 2016, when Joe, the NXT champion at the time, was walking with security backstage. One security member was played by MJF, who got ahead of Joe while walking, resulting in Joe pushing the former AEW World Champion out of the way, just like what we saw at All Out. Given the brawl between the two, it seems like Joe will be the next challenge for the AEW World Championship, though perhaps MJF will be eyeing up the ROH World Television title instead. Did you spot this reference to NXT, and are you excited by the prospect of Joe versus MJF down the line? Let us know in the comments below. All Out also saw Bryan Danielson return to action to defeat Ricky Starks in a strap match, a replacement for the planned Starks vs. CM Punk match for the Real World Championship. Danielson was a last-minute replacement, and on Wrestling Observer Radio, it was reported that the original plan was for Bryan to actually make his return during AEW's Grand Slam week later this month. Danielson's return was certainly a surprise, as it was only reported recently that he may have been able to wrestle at WrestleDream on October 1st, and it goes to show that Danielson is a team player and ready to help AEW in this unique time. More from AEW now, as CM Punk is no longer on the roster, and he is not the only star to part ways with the company very recently. Last week, fans spotted that Sonny Kiss's profile had been removed from AEW's website, leading some to speculate that they'd left AEW, and that is entirely what happened. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful confirmed that as of September 1st, Kiss was no longer with AEW, but said that unlike Punk, Kiss's contract merely expired and wasn't renewed. Sonny Kiss had been appearing on AEW programming since 2019, but was used sporadically on TV, with Joey Janela even commenting that Kiss was seemingly only ever shown in packages during Pride Month. As for where Kiss goes next, that remains to be seen, but the ex-AEW star will now have to seek opportunities outside of the All Elite promotion. Now, All In 2023 saw plenty of title matches, but one piece of gold that wasn't on the line was Athena's ROH Women's World Championship. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was reported that Athena was supposed to defend her title at All Out against Billie Starkz, but Starkz didn't get cleared in time, and will have to wait until she's fully ready for that match to happen. Ever since AEW launched, the company has set itself apart from WWE in many ways, including not being afraid to feature some of the more gruesome matches you'll see on TV. From barbed wire to beds of nails to the dreaded real glass, AEW has never shied away from producing more gore than their Stamford counterparts, but there is a limit to the violence. During a discussion at StarCast, AEW's legal representative Christopher Peck was asked if there had ever been a concept that couldn't be used on TV, and there was one incident involving a hatchet. Peck couldn't recall who rung him, but remembered a panicked phone call about 10 minutes before the AEW show started, with someone asking if they could bring a hatchet to the ring. When the wrestler explained what they intended to do with the hatchet, Peck made it clear that the hatchet was not going to be usable on TV, as it'd likely open AEW up to some kind of lawsuit. As to who wanted to use a hatchet, we may never know, but AEW stars take risks every single week without bringing a hatchet in the ring. At AEW All In, Mercedes Moné was shown among the 81,000 fans in Wembley, but while this made her debut on AEW programming, it may have also resulted in her being edited out of WWE footage. On Twitter, WWE shared a footage of Bayley's heel turn from 2019, but took great care in making sure Moné was not seen, and judging by the comments, there's no shortage of fans who have taken issue with WWE editing Moné out of this historic moment. And we're ending today with LA Knight, who is coming off a huge win at Payback, where he defeated The Miz with John Cena as the guest referee. On the bump, Knight reflected on his win, saying that all of The Miz's talk in recent weeks couldn't save him from being dropped, and added that neither he nor The Miz expected John Cena's involvement. Knight added that Cena and him shook hands post-match, but said that they're far from best friends as Cena almost cost me in the match, so perhaps we could see Knight versus Cena down the line.